What's up, y'all? We are here for our weekly manifestation oracle message. We're just checking in with our goals and our dreams and our intentions to see how we need to direct our focus and our energy for the next 7 or 8 days. So this one's kind of standing out. What do we have? Ooh, ready, set, go. Time to get moving. Now is the perfect time to dive in and embrace your heart's desire. So, we've got springtime on the way. I'm feeling Aries season approaching. I'm feeling that Mars gone indirect a couple of weeks ago. Now I feel the momentum picking up. I'm an Aries, so I'm ruled by Mars. So I've been feeling a lot more energetic. We had daylight savings time over happening Sunday, so that means our days are growing longer and the light is returning. It's funny when we talk about the metaphysical light and darkness, the spiritual secret or technology under that is that the literal light and darkness also share the same energy or essence as the metaphysical light and darkness. So when the light returns, it is literally like being fed from the light of God. And at the same time, when we're in the dark, we are more vulnerable to the dark forces, dark energies. So that's why it's good if you can avoid, walking by yourself at night. It's not just logistically less safe, but there is more of a vulnerability when there's a lack of the presence of light. Remember in Genesis, when the light was separated from the darkness, it's both true physically and materially and spiritually. So very interesting. So yes, if you can be with people at night, notice how so there's so many layers and I'm like, oh, what should I say first? I'm glitching out, I'm buffering. So Kabbalistically speaking, the energy through the day goes through a spectrum of super positive energy, and then the super positive energy wanes as the day grows towards the nighttime. Same with the moon cycles, right? When the moon is new, that is you're not supposed to do rituals when the moon is exactly new because there's no light in the moon. The moon has no light of its own. It's a vessel that reflects the light of the sun. Just like we have no light of our own, but we reflect the light of our Creator. The life force within us is revealed through our breaking away of the negativity. So there's always this play on words and these layered ideas and meanings, but these truths that reveal themselves. So interesting too how the universe and the physical realm that we live in is always speaking and showing us the spiritual truth of the universe through the metaphor of nature. So interesting. So it's good to have so what I was getting at is in the morning when the sun it has its fresh light at dawn, those are the most positive hours of the day. And if you notice, you feel if you get to the point where you can wake up early and enjoy that morning time, some people are just naturally morning people, but others aren't. But if you can get past the not wanting to wake up and you're there in those early morning hours, there's something that feels so fulfilling and peaceful and nurturing and positive about those morning hours. And then I know for myself, this is true. My more focused and disciplined time of day is definitely earlier in the day. And then I sort of lose my willpower over the day. And you'll notice that when the day starts to get dark, you start to become more vulnerable to sadness, depressed thoughts, loneliness, or fear, right? And we think it's just because, it's dark and, this is the time of night or the time of day where people can hide and do things and not be as obvious, so you're more at risk. But there's also more to that that we're actually more vulnerable during the later hours of the day because the day is losing its positivity. Same for the moon. When the moon is new, it has no light. So when the moon is dark, you should not do ritual, or if you do spell work or whatever, don't start anything when the moon is exactly new. At least wait a few hours until the light starts to grow. And really, if you can wait till like the first day of the new moon, or, you know, several hours later or whatever, if you want to sit and set your intentions and things, I would say look at what time the new moon is and wait a couple of hours. Wait another hour or so before you just sit down and do that new moon ritual. You know, still have your bath and everything that night or whatever, but just like at that precise moment, it's like just wait for about an hour or so until the light gradually starts to grow. So the moon phases during the new moon, during its waxing phase, that means the light is growing and the moon is becoming brighter and brighter, growing towards full. During the waxing cycle, this is the becoming, right? So this is when you want to do your actions and put your effort in. You know, they say that when you set your intention during the new moon, you should do 3 positive actions that propel your goal forward during that waxing phase. The full moon is when you celebrate the culmination of the energy and maybe the revelation of the manifestation, or just believe that it is happening, that it is that it's on its way, and that it can play out over the next 6 months till the next moon cycle that matches that same new moon. The new moon becomes the full moon 6 months later, whatever sign it's in. So use your time wisely, but we are in that building. So circling back. Sorry, I talked in circles for a little bit. We covered a lot of ground just there, lots of secrets. So as the springtime grows, the days grow lighter, it's like we have more vitality, we have more inspiration, we have more energy, we have more joy, we have more excitement. And try to tell me that's not true. Try to tell me that you don't believe in seasonal depression when it's all dark and it's not just because of the moodiness and sogginess, right? It is literally the absence of that light that we need so poorly. I mean, think about your plants. Your plants get depressed when they don't have enough light. And so do we. So ready, set, go. Now that you've got that building momentum, that energy, like making, you don't have to like sit and wait anymore for springtime energy to support your goals, right? Sometimes like when we're in the dead of winter, especially when like Mars is in retrograde, there was just nothing we could do to force anything forward. Believe me, I tried. Nothing worked out. But now I think the ball is going to start rolling and things are going to start happening with greater ease. Yay. All right. Card number 2, rest. So I think, don't you love it when the cards completely seem to contradict one another, like right in succession? So you've been working hard, take a nap and get some rest. Now, back to our reference to Genesis. On the 6th day was the day of creation, but is known and celebrated and understood as the day of creation. And it has the most creative life force and that creative magic in it. But the 7th day, God rested. And so, even God himself, creating all that is, took a day to honor void and stillness and rest. And we are commanded to honor that day of rest. It's not just like a suggestion, like, yeah, take a day off. It's like, you need this once a week. You need to completely unplug, don't do any work, and let yourself be renewed, mind, heart, soul, body, and spirit. Spend that time. The Hebrew term for this day is Shabbat, and technically that window of time is sundown on Friday night, and it goes through Saturday night at sundown. So that 24-hour period is set aside as sacred and holy. So you shouldn't be doing any work, but what you should be doing is doing, having a nice dinner with family and friends, sharing consciousness, studying some ancient sacred texts like, Torah, you can go Old Testament, New Testament. I like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Gnostic Gospels as well. But you want to feed yourself with spiritual wisdom and connect with God and renew yourself. Prayer, meditation is great. Getting out in nature and just enjoying all the quiet beauty and stillness. Some people, if you're kosher or Orthodox, you won't even use electricity. You won't do anything. You won't turn on a light. You won't go out for a walk. Like it is strict rest. But those of us who aren't necessarily Orthodox or kosher, it's a little bit more, up to you what you do. But I like to spend my Shabbat doing something that fills me with spiritual wisdom. So I usually watch a Kabbalah class. Every now and then I will stream the Shabbat service through the Kabbalah Center, but I also, every Shabbat, unless I'm like working that night, I have my challah loaf and I take my kiddush, which is the wine and the bread and the candles, and I say the prayers over the candles and do the whole thing. And so I do that before I eat my evening meal. And so it's a lot of times if I'm cooking, I will listen to my Kabbalah class while I'm cooking, and it's like a sacred ritual. So it's sacred ritual time. So even though it is go time, ready, set, go, don't forget also the importance of letting yourself rest. We need that rhythm, or else life just gets too dull. Life passes you by. If anybody has had that workaholic parent, it's not worth what you sacrifice, trying to work all the time, achieve, prove yourself. And one of the lessons of that stop, that rest, is that you are demonstrating it's an act of faith. It's an act of surrender and trust, that you understand that it's not all up to you, that you can only do so much by the strength of your own hands, and that you do the best you can. You bring your side of the deal, right? You give 100%, but ultimately you can sit back and know that it's not by your strength alone, that it is the Creator that comes in and does the rest of that, does the rest of the work for you, right? So that's not to say, oh, I don't have to do this. If it's meant to be, it'll happen for me. Nope. Because I know a lot of Christians who are very passive, who are too passive, who are waiting upon the Lord, so to speak, but then they wonder why nothing happens, because they're not taking enough action. So it's both. It's like we have to take the action. We have to fully believe. We have to give it our best. We have to hit it from every angle, right? You do the literal action towards the goal. You're doing the inner work and the self-development and the spiritual healing and corrections. And then you ultimately, after you've given it all you've got, you take your hands off the wheel and you're like, okay, God's going to carry me the rest of the way. Like I've brought my side of the bargain, and then God will meet me somewhere in the other side of this. Now, that's not guaranteeing that the thing that you have your heart set on is going to work out necessarily. But say you're working on a project and you gave it your all, and it falls through, or it doesn't work out, right? Like say, something happens with, you put all your heart and soul into a relationship or into a business, and it just doesn't work out, even though you gave it everything you had. If you don't have total despair over the thing not working out, and you don't fall into despondency and give up completely, if you don't give up hope and throw in the towel, and you believe, you trust, you're like, you know what, I don't understand why this happened the way it did, but I trust that God has a plan, and that God can come into the situation and actually use this fall to then spring me up and exalt me on the other side of it. So something better will come. Now, if you can hold on to that faith, then what happens is the effort that you put into that thing is stored away like your spiritual equity. It's like in a spiritual bank account, like Scrooge McDuck's vault full of coins that he would dive into and swim through, which how many people wanted to do that? If you ever saw that cartoon, DuckTales, the rich duck uncle has like a vault of like mountains of like coins, and he would dive in and swim. Of course, that would break your neck, but it's a cartoon. So that effort will be transferred to the right thing at the right time, and all that effort, that heartfelt energy that you put into that thing will result and yield spiritual interest for you when that right opportunity for you really does come through. So never give up hope, and feel the faith and the trust that you can rest, that everything's not going to fall apart if you take some time off, or if it doesn't, if you can't keep giving your absolute effort for some reason. And I mean, this is true for me, especially when, for example, this channel requires, like, I feel like what I've noticed is if I make a daily video, my algorithm does grow, but if I miss days, it gets really off. Like, my numbers drop so low. And so it is very scary for me. It's sometimes very hard for me on days where I need to not make a video because I have other plans and the day gets away from me, or, I have nighttime plans, and, it's just not in the cards for me to come home and make a video. I have to like really trust that everything's going to be okay, and all my work isn't going to be all for naught. While we're talking about that, you guys, please, if you're continuing to come back and watch these videos, please remember to like the videos when you watch them. It's like saying thank you, or it's like tipping me or something, but without any interaction, the algorithm doesn't understand. It gets confused. It's like, why are people watching this video and not reacting to it? If you can comment, even better. Unless you have an obnoxious trolly comment, and then you can keep it to yourself unless you want a big dose of my sass. And if you can share the video, if you can subscribe to the channel, whatever you can do, that would be amazing. And also, there's something I've been trying to do is to niche down so that I can find my audience. This channel has barely grown in 3 years, and people will tell me often that this is like life-changing material, that they find so much value in it that they can't believe this isn't a huge channel. But for some reason, I've always had very quiet viewers. And there's always a few that chime in, but I think we can do a lot better, because without your participation, these videos don't get out anywhere. And YouTube doesn't know who to show them to. And at this point, I feel like I have a really random collection of people. I cannot figure out who my demographic is who's already here to save my life. And so you guys have been giving me a little bit of insight into who you are, how long you've been watching, what it is that you kind of take away from this channel. Like, are you here for the spiritual growth? Are you here for like a positive message? Do you like tarot? Like, what is it, in the content wise that can help me narrow down the keywords and the search terms? Now, people have commented like, oh, make your videos shorter or longer or whatever. But the thing is that I've made shorter videos and they don't get a lot of views. And a lot of people like that 30-minute block of time so they can sit down and relax, or they can have something to watch drink their coffee to, or put their makeup on to. And so I don't really feel like cutting the message short, because these are channeled messages that come through. So it's a lot of times when I'm talking, there will be deep Kabbalistic secrets and teachings that come through because we've had the freedom to not be like in a hurry, right? And if I hurry through the videos, then sometimes I cut off the message. So I don't think that that's necessarily the answer. And then some people have been like, well, maybe you should title your video more spammy, clickbaity titles. And I've kind of tried that at times too, and I don't see any kind of like big differences in like clicks and click-throughs and responses. My statistics are pretty consistent. So, any keywords that you guys can think of, or like things where I can describe my channel in a more clear way that helps the appropriate audience find this material, who can actually be transformed by this material. I feel like our channel is about spiritual growth. I feel like this channel is here to be a bridge for people who have maybe been alienated or traumatized by the church, but still have faith and they still believe, but they can't stand like all the Christian jargon. And like, I mean, I can barely watch, like I try to watch some Christian content makers, and the way that they talk and the way that they all say the same thing and the way that they all say the same words and the way that they have the same sort of like cadence, it makes me want to gag, honestly. I can barely take it, and I want to hear what they have to say. So this is something else for people who also can't stand that whole tone. So chime in the comments. Okay, next we have self-forgiveness. Ooh, big one. Okay, so our full moon eclipse in Virgo coming up this week during the season of Pisces is here to offload and unburden our soul and our heart of all of the emotional baggage that we are holding on to, that we haven't processed those feelings. Maybe we have things that we never said, or we didn't speak up for ourselves, or, you know, but there's still some lingering pain and maybe regret or sorrow that is sort of clouding our heart and our mind and our subconscious and our energy field. And a lot of that too is we focus all our energy on forgiving other people and healing the things that we experienced in our relation to other people, but rarely do we focus on forgiving ourselves and understanding that what we've gone through on our path were our choices, but also some of it was designed to be that way. Some of these things we were brought through because they were those passages and tests and things that helped shape and define our character. And so the things that have happened to us and have unfolded in our lives and our experiences, it's not those experiences that define us. It's how we react and what the person that we become in response to those experiences. So we need to, forgive ourselves and let ourselves off the hook, because that life is about being on a journey, and it's not. The goal isn't to become perfect and never make a mistake. The goal is to be present throughout the journey. It's the journey to self-discovery. The road trip is the thing. Looking out the window, it's not necessarily getting to the location, at a certain perfect time. So this is about meandering and understanding that everything along the path, we need to be present for it, because this is life, right? We don't want to speed past it, right? It's like if a couple breaks up and they immediately just go to like being, okay, it's fine, we'll just be friends, and then and this is better anyway because it's not as hurtful and we're better this way anyway. But they bypass the actual pain. And the pain of the relationship is very important. You need to grieve it, but that pain also allows you to draw the treasure of what you learned and how that relationship shaped you in ways that if you bypass the pain, you don't take away the lessons from the relationship. Not the same. I mean, you might take away like topical surface level lessons, but it is really allowing yourself to go into those memories and let your soul speak to you about those things, and you reflect back on things over time and you have a different perspective, or you see something, you have an insight about something that never would have occurred to you before, so not only do we don't want to spiritually bypass by just skipping straight to, okay, everything's fine, and so this is something that we need to apply to ourselves too. We don't just want to skip over our life and be like, well, everything happens for a reason. That's it. That's spiritual laziness. everything does happen for a purpose, but it's not enough to just go around thinking, well, everything happens for a purpose. It's like, okay, well, and what was that purpose? What purpose does this serve for you? What have you learned in this? What have you discovered that you would like to heal in yourself from this? How has this evolved your soul? And the pressure that has shaped you and formed you into this priceless gem, right? If you skip the pressure and you skip the heat and you don't want to be in that pain, and you don't get the treasure. So, it's not that you can't grow in life without pain. I think that you can, but most of us don't, right? If we proactively seek after ways that we can push ourselves out of our comfort zone and do what doesn't naturally come easy to us, and search for those parts of ourselves and go after them and do it on our own, like proactive self-development and searching for your negativity does help you bypass painful lessons. Because basically the universe, God, when I say universe, I'm not meaning that in the metaphysical way that people say it when they don't want to talk about God. I just mean that God, as he is manifested in the physical matrix that we are in, and all the things that are interacting with us, I feel like this is God moving through the physical. So that's what I mean when I say universe. So the universe, God, will do its best to get our attention in whispers, right? And it'll show us loving, easy ways that it's trying to point out these lessons and these messages. And when we ignore them and we don't take them to heart and we don't take it in and we don't perceive them, then the volume turns up. And eventually that volume has to turn into a little bit of chaos, a little bit of pain. Okay, you're not getting it. Do I need to give you more pain? Okay, maybe you need something more substantial, right? And so the chaos starts to compound until we actually get the message and start making an effort. So we can bypass that. I mean, pain is unavoidable, but suffering is a choice. And so how much, sometimes we suffer depends on how willing and open we are to get a message, and receive that with humility and allow it to change us, right? So forgiving ourselves, letting go of old guilt, and remember that you're God's perfect child. So full moon in Virgo, total eclipse. And we know that eclipses are like the big vacuum cleaner of the cosmos. So this is not just your typical full moon where you release. I mean, this is big release. And if you do not let go of the things that are trying to leave your life, eclipse season will rip them out of your dead, lifeless fingers. Okay, so it can get very unpleasant. I have seen some pretty heinous things go down during eclipse season. So it's always better to just let it go. Let it be what it needs to be. Let it move through your life and pass through. And if it's trying to leave, it's just like, all right, well, if you're meant to be here, you will be here after eclipse season. But I am not going to wait for eclipse season to change my trajectory for me, because that's how you get those tower moments, right? Blessed change. I think good things are coming. How about you? A major life change brings you great blessings. But you know what? On the other side of that healing and the forgiveness and personal transformation and letting go of the self-righteous thingness that you want to hold on to, when you really make a spiritual sacrifice, right? And you let go of something that you've been holding on to, it creates major magic and miracles. The harder it is for you to make a sacrifice or to do an action or to say you're sorry or to forgive someone else, the more light that thing reveals. The more you're like, I don't want to do this, and then you do it anyway, that reveals big time miracles. So push yourself out of your comfort zone and do what you may not consider to come easy to you. Major life changes. Love that. I want to get a couple of these. This is the Wisdom of the Hidden Realms. I love this deck and I haven't been using it in a while. I have a million decks, but a lot of them I don't use often enough to really have the cards memorized. And so I like to use cards on this channel that I know, or at least give me enough indication where I can be prompted into an intuitive interpretation. But some of the cards are like so random that I'm like, it's not, I don't want to just sit here and read out of a book. Okay, the Wise Woman of Wonderland, integrity and compromise. So this is perfect for right now, because just the climate that we're in right now on Earth, I think everyone needs a big dose of integrity and discerning compromise. Not letting, not doing things against your ethics or morals kind of compromise, but not like choosing the hills you want to die on, and not tit for tatting and things like that. We want to find ways to work together may not be the right word, but say, okay, so for instance, the demonstrations and things are starting to escalate, where, you know, people are starting, you know, and this isn't always in this country, like in Paris, they're starting to like burn down Tesla showrooms and things like that. Well, that only gives the other side fuel to counteract, right? It's like tit for tat. It's like it ends up causing backlash, right? And it creates the environment and the conditions for like harsher blowback and legal ramifications, and other people doing things to revenge and then avenge and then revenge, and then it can get violent, right? And then you're opening up this you know, possibility of crowds getting out of control, right? And then, you know, police getting involved and people getting arrested and hurt and all these things. And so it's like, it just gives the other side fuel to be like, see, I told you, like, they were this way. And we now more than ever need to be very careful about how we show up and how we handle the way that we are resisting this administration or the things that are going on right now in the world. We need to be very intentional about it, and keep our integrity high, and keep our actions aimed at the people who are at the root of what's happening. Burning down, like, say, a Tesla dealership, all it does is hurt the individual that owns that dealership. You know, if you're throwing something at someone who has a Tesla car or hurting their car, you're just hurting that person, but it's not doing anything but causing more violence and hard feelings and vitriol, right? We need to ease the anger and the pain, and try to reach the people on the fringes that are kind of in between. They're like, I don't know who to think, I don't know who to believe right now. Well, if we start acting in ways that are out of integrity and aren't really in alignment with our values, then that's not going to carry much weight for pushing the scales of light and darkness towards the light. Jesus was never about rising up violently against the Roman Empire. He was giving people a new mindset, a new consciousness. He was liberating their spirit, right? All the followers and all the people kept thinking, like, when's Jesus going to take over the government? When he's going to fuck Caesar, like, let's overthrow, like, the Romans. All like, no, like, everybody, like, people were on edge. Like, the Romans were on edge. They're like, I don't know if he's going to, like, create an army and there's going to be, like, a big revolt. Like, we're pretty nervous about it. That's not what Jesus was all about. And he knew the plan. He knew that would be the most effective thing was his plan that was going to be to plant the seeds through being a peaceful, the Prince of Peace, a pacifist that spread love and impressed people through kindness and giving and sharing and truth. And sometimes Jesus was very assertive, and when it was called for, he had righteous anger and would get really direct with people. And even Jesus did acts of civil disobedience, like healing on Shabbat and things like that. Now, during the civil rights movement of the 1960s, they weren't burning their town down. The acts of civil disobedience were sitting in places where they weren't supposed to. They were doing the things that were illegal, that were unjustly illegal. And it was things that weren't hurting people, right? Ultimately, it was the Montgomery boycotts that overthrew and ended segregation. It's just like now, we are joining the People's Union, participating in boycotts that are actually making a difference to these men. Hurting their bottom line makes a difference to them. They don't have feelings, they don't have ethics, they don't have morals. And when we parade in the streets, it makes like for a powerful, emotional impact. But for the people in charge, it's not actually going to change their mind. They're not going to change their policy. It wakes up the people maybe and changes, an individual, maybe the way that they see it, but it's not going to change policy. So we need to be very, I can't think of the word, it's not pristine, but we need to be, we need to be in the highest integrity right now. So compromise on, okay, I feel like burning down a Tesla dealership, but I'm not going to do that. I am not. I am going to sell my shares of Tesla instead, right? So we need to encourage people into peaceful resistance and economic resistance. And then we have the cosmos, creativity and vastness. So understanding how to surf the flow of the cosmic energy, right? When we build affinity with the light of the Creator, when we become more like God, when we share the consciousness that God would have, when we behave in the way that Jesus would, because Jesus was the example that God gave us of what God would be like if he was a person, right? So when we change our consciousness to become more like the Creator and more like Jesus, and we become more like Jesus in our actions and in our heart, then we align and we draw close to the Shekhinah, which is the force of God that protects and provides and brings joy and fulfillment in our life. And so when we are vibrationally in resonance with the power and the personality and the consciousness of God, when we share that likeness with God, then we resonate and can draw close to that energy, and that puts us in the protection and the abundance and the fulfillment. But when we break that consciousness and we become reactive and we become selfish and we become indignant and self-righteous and angry and fearful and panicky and you name it, when we go into that human animalistic consciousness, then we break affinity with the light of the Creator, which cuts us off from those blessings, which separates us from the Creator. We want to be in union with the Creator, not separate from the Creator. And so that the Shekhinah cannot be and dwell in a place of darkness or sadness or a place that lacks joy and fulfillment. So it is up to us to generate ways to make sure that we can reconnect and refuel our joy and our happiness, because that is the way that we draw close to the Creator and are in that protection or in the shade of the Creator, so to speak. So that is all for tonight. I think that's a good place to end. I think this is going to be a good week. I think that this is about doing the actions that you're guided to take, giving yourself the gift of sacred ritual rest day, And doing that as an act of faith and surrender, and knowing that you're not the only one in the fight here, that the creator is going to do the creator's part when you do your part. So it's not all up to you, and the world isn't going to fall apart if you don't have your hands on everything. And forgiving ourselves, right? Letting ourselves off the hook for things that we feel like we're punishing ourselves over. Really, it's not that we bypass the atonement, like we repent for those things, but repenting is getting back on the path, right? It's not dwelling on it forever. It's making a change and getting back on the path and realigning and getting back in that affinity with God again. The grace is that in the instant we fall out of affinity with the light of the creator, and that lapse of consciousness, it only takes a moment also to shift yourself back in to the right consciousness. And so through that, we will have blessed change coming in. So I feel really good things are coming. It's going to be, very formulaic like that, and really loving ourselves and showing up and being consistent and following through. All right. Good luck. I hope everything wonderful happens for you this week. Let me know in the comments if you have some blessings come your way. All right. Peace.